Welcome to an analysis of Oxford focusing on the townscape aspects, using Gordon Cullen's theory of serial vision to ascertain what features of the environment gave Oxford its sense of place and identity. The blue arrows represent areas of study. I'll be looking at Radcliffe Square, Charles Street, Broad Street and the High Street predominantly. Starting with the High Street, there is an array of shapes, heights and colours to the buildings. This array of individual structures makes the High Street interesting and memorable. The curve in the road provides anticipation of what lies in the distance, and even though the buildings are tall, the width of the road promotes a lesser feeling of enclosure than one might expect. Walking through the narrow alley of the High, you are greeted by a dramatic, historical and unusually round building. We are then greeted by a magnificent iron gate, demonstrating the difference between public and private space, and acting as a screen vista, distorting the image of what lies beyond. At the top of the road, there seems to be a very wide area of expanse. There is a real sense of here-ness and there-ness because the space has been divided up accordingly. Through the gate, to the left, there is another very grand building. However, it's protected once again by a screen vista in the form of an iron gate. The heightness of the buildings and the facade on the right and to the top left provide a huge enclosure to the space, and the gap in the two buildings provides a nice skyline view. To the right we see a grand vista. The opulence of this structure draws all attention away from what is above or below it in the distance. Although one does catch a glimpse of the small alleyway in the distance, displaying unreadable partial road signs, but this invites you to investigate further. Back in Radcliffe Square, the iron walls represent the possession of space between public and private whilst maintaining the view of the grandeur of the building. Moving on towards Brasenose Street, the cobbles and concrete of the street subtly provide a sense of here-ness and there-ness once again. Looking on in the distance and we can see a gap in the building, a glimpse of the skyline displaying an exit to the otherwise enclosed square. The trees provide further natural enclosure to an already fairly dark street. Focusing on Charles Street, and we are greeted by this overhanging tree that acts as an incident in the street, dictating what we can and can't see. The windows are fairly typical and interestingly exposed from the rest of the building, demonstrating projection and recession. It's obvious that the spire at the end of Charles Street dominates the road completely. However, the contrast in building materials and colours also provides memorable information. Continuing with Charles Street, we can see that the buildings have all different colours, shapes, sizes and angles at which they are built. There is also punctuation in the form of the street lights. This creates variety and is memorable to people. Back on the High Street at Carfax, and there is once more a real feeling of here-ness and there-ness due to the way the roads have been designed, looking at pedestrian and vehicle access. To the left there is again still projection and recession in the buildings. Now on Broad Street, and it's apparent the grandeur of yet another building with the angle the building sits to the road, causing an incident because the building seems to feel uncomfortable with how it's positioned. This for me was the most memorable area of study and gave it sense of place. Walking down Broad Street, and to the right there is a gap in the buildings. The captured space has been created by plants and trees. As you can see, there is a differing variety of buildings the whole way along the street, making the whole place interesting. Broad Street has a very clear distinction between pedestrian and road usage. From this angle, the differing heights of buildings presents an engaging skyline view. Concluding with the covered market, one is surprised after entering such a narrow walkway that the area is opened up into somewhat a web of small alleys. But unusually, there were tall ceilings giving the market less of a claustrophobic feel, helped also by the large volume of entry and exit points. As a result of this project, it appears an individuality in the form of colours, sizes and grandeur give the area its sense of place, understanding the way buildings and streets interact with each other, and that this is what makes it engaging and memorable, was another very productive tool gained from this study.